In the 1960s in London, twins Reggie and Ron Kray live in the East End. However, after being imprisoned for grievous bodily harm, Ron is diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and is locked up in a psychiatric hospital. Despite the distance between the twins, Ron and Reggie remain close and dream of one day conquering the underworld of London. To this effect, they begin terrorizing, competing with local gangs, and making a name for themselves to everyone, including Scotland Yard. One morning, Reggie exits his house and taunts the Scotland Yard officer, Nipper Reid, who is surveilling him, before leaving with his right-hand man, Albert Donahue, Albie. Then Reggie heads to his driver, Frankie Shay's house, and while he waits for Frankie, he meets Frankie's younger sister, Frances, is intrigued and asks her out. Despite her mother's disapproval, Frances accepts the date.
I'll go easy on him if you do.
Then, with Frankie on the wheel, Reggie manages to trick the officer, who's still following him, and heads to the psychiatric hospital.
Nipper Reid was the copper on the Kray's case.
There, Reggie sends his enforcer, Pat, to intimidate Ron's psychiatrist, forces him to vouch for Ron's recovery, and gets his brother released.
To keep him here would be a waste of public resources.
Later, Reggie takes Frances out to his club and tries to impress her. However, he's interrupted to deal with his enforcer, Jack McVite, who's caught skimming money from him.
Next time I'll finish you off, you little slag.
A few weeks later, Reggie introduces Frances to Ron, who awkwardly welcomes her to their family.
Do you think that we look alike, me and Reggie?
Oh, yeah, certainly.
As the Krays try to expand their territories, they enter into a standoff with an established gang named the Richardson Gang, torture gang, for the way they cruelly punish anyone who steps out of their rules. After finding out the Krays had trespassed into their territories, the torture gang send a warning through their enforcer, George Cornell. A few days later, the Krays retaliate. As the animosity between the gangs grows, the leader of the torture gang, Charlie Richardson, sets up a meeting to work things out on neutral ground. However, when the Krays show up, they realize that it's a setup and quickly react. Then luckily for the Krays, Charlie is sentenced for 25 years for extortion, which makes it easier for the Krays to expand their rule over London, uncontested.
Oh, wait! It's a goal! It's a goal!
The twins start their expansion by using their front man, Leslie Payne, to intimidate the owner of a local gambling casino called Esmeralda's Barn and forcefully purchase it from him.
Gambling casino in Knightsbridge called Esmeralda's Barn.
A few days later, Leslie informs the Krays that a known American mafia that rules Las Vegas wants to work with them and sets up a meeting with the representative named Angelo Bruno, despite Ron's hesitation.
Right, we meet these mafiosos come to London airport, right? We pick them up.
At the meeting, Angelo informs the Krays that the mafia has bought a few casinos in London and asks them to provide security. Then on behalf of the mafia boss, Meyer Lansky, Angelo gifts the Krays suitcases full of cash and asks them to sell stolen bearer bonds worth more than $100 grand and negotiate to split the return equally.
The second briefcase contains business of my own I need to take care of.
Elsewhere, Esmeralda's Barn starts making money hand over fist, and Reggie enjoys the success of owning a legal means of income. The rich and famous start frequenting the casino, officially marking it the local hotspot.
He was becoming a celebrity himself.
While everyone enjoys this unprecedented success and glory, Ron's demons get the better of him, and he stays the odd man out, battling with his need to have his brother all to himself and being paranoid about all the crew.
Life, it just plays dirty tricks on you, you know?
A few weeks later, Reggie's appeal of his old warrant is denied, and he's sentenced to 6 months in prison, which breaks Frances's heart. Reggie bids farewell to his girlfriend and heads to prison with Albie and Frankie. Before he enters the prison, Reggie asks Frankie to take care of his sister while he's away. In prison, as soon as Reggie enters, the cops who have held a grudge against him for his intimidation and lawlessness beat the life out of him. Reggie begs for mercy as he could no longer take the brutality, but manages to retaliate unexpectedly a few minutes later. With Reggie gone, Ron and Leslie start bumping heads on every decision. One day, Ron demands to take money from their casino and build a city in Nigeria. However, Leslie puts his foot down as it's an impractical demand.
I want to build a city in Nigeria for the children.
Elsewhere, France visits Reggie in prison and is disheartened to see his bruises. Then after telling him how much she loves him, Frances makes Reggie promise to leave the criminal, gangster life behind. One night in Esmeralda's barn, Ron gets on stage and, after making a couple of awkward jokes, he calls out his high-class customers for their superficial life and flat-out insults them. This ends up offending the loyal clientele and frustrating Albie, Leslie, and the crew.
Dripping in your synthetic opulence.
A couple of months later, Reggie is released from prison and heads to Frances' house to see her and proposes to her. After stressing that they must start to live above board, Frances accepts the proposal.
Yes, Reggie Kray, I will marry you.
Later that day, the newly engaged couple goes to Esmeralda's barn to celebrate, but when they arrive, they are utterly shocked to see it dull and empty, except for members of the crew. Reggie's pissed off at the damage his brother had done, but hoping not to ruin his special night with Frances, he proceeds to leave. However, Ron picks a fight with Reggie and blatantly disrespects Frances in front of everyone, which pushes Reggie over the edge, and a fight ensues between the brothers. The fight is paused for a minute as each brother gathers himself, but soon Ron restarts it violently.
No, run.
Frances can no longer take the violence and storms out of the casino. Reggie finally manages to overpower Ron, who soon breaks down, saying he doesn't know who he is anymore, apologizes to Reggie, and advises him to go after Frances, claiming she's a keeper.
I'm very sorry.
It's okay. Are you done?
The next day, Reggie stalks Frances on the street, apologizes to her, and they resume their relationship. Elsewhere, Ron and his goons approach a respected member of the House of Lords, Lord Boothby, to acquire his help in building a city in Nigeria. Lord Boothby refuses to get involved, but ends up finding common perverted interests with Ron. The two form an unlikely friendship, and Lord Boothby starts frequenting Ron's illicit parties at his apartment. Unbeknownst to Lord Boothby, his activities are captured on camera by Nipper and his men, who keep surveilling Ron. One day, the police inform the Prime Minister of England, Harold Wilson, of these developments along with the evidence, which shocks him.
We've had two brothers, gangsters, under surveillance.
Elsewhere, on track to make a clean living, Reggie intimidates the owner of a local club and negotiates a deal. However, in fear of losing his gangster brother, Ron sends his goons to the owner to reverse the deal.
Please, I have customers.
Wait, that's it. Come on.
This backfires, however, when the stressed owner reports the incident to the police, who charge both the Krays with extortion. On Reggie's orders, Leslie distributes a compromising picture of Lord Boothby to the national newspapers. Then in court, the Krays' defense threatens to call Lord Boothby as a character witness to the stand, which forces the government to drop the charge and set the Krays free, inadvertently marking the twins untouchable. That afternoon, Reggie buys the club at a discount. Later that night, Nipper goes to Reggie's new club to confront him, but instead the brothers set him up in a picture with them and publish it, which angers his bosses and forces them to take him off the case.
Your investigation into the Krays will end at once.
On Frances and Reggie's big day, Mrs. Shea frustrates everyone by showing up in all-black funeral clothes to warn her daughter that marrying a gangster will ruin her. However, it all falls on deaf ears, and after a few warnings to the mother of the bride, the beautiful ceremony goes on without a hitch. After returning from the honeymoon, Reggie fails to keep his promise and actively goes back to the life of crime, which brings in a boatload of money.
Kettle's on the boil. It's tea.
Despite getting an apartment on the other side of London, missing the East End, the newly married couple gets another place in Ron's building. However, that doesn't really work in favor of the marriage, as Reggie spends all of his nights overseeing his various clubs, while his wife stays sleepless at home due to Ron's loud parties. One day, Reggie's informed that Jack has been causing some problems at a local club he provides security for, and decides to warn him. The marriage and the pressure from Reggie's family starts to get to Frances, who loses her innocence and bubbliness. As the strain progresses, she's forced to use different mood-stabilizing pills just to get through the day and sleeping pills to make it through the lonely nights. One day, hoping to make up for all his shortcomings, Reggie gifts Frances a brand new car for her birthday and promises to teach her how to drive soon.
Happy birthday, Francis.
Thank you.
But I can tomorrow.
Elsewhere, as the Krays and their crews hang out at a bar, Leslie advises Ron to stop using violence all the time, which infuriates the already suspicious Ron into attacking Leslie, claiming he knows too much about their business.
I don't trust him. He talks too much, asks too many questions.
This frustrates everyone, especially Reggie, who loses his mind in anger and warns his brother to take his medications and dial down his paranoia.
You can do me and I'll do you. We're both fucking dead. That's a genius idea.
A few days later, Angelo calls Reggie for a private meeting and asks him to eliminate Ron, as he's a liability, but Reggie refuses to and defends his brother.
I can't do that. He's my brother.
Meanwhile, on behalf of the torture gang, George Cornell harasses a local warehouse under the Kray's protection list. Angered by the disrespect, Ron tracks George to a bar, walks in, and shoots him in the head, while everyone in the bar watches in utter shock.
Yeah, you're not laughing now, are you?
Reggie hears of what happened and becomes outraged. He gathers his men and tries his best to destroy the evidence. He then turns to the witnesses and sends his men to persuade them to keep quiet. Elsewhere, the shocking murder gets Nipper back on the case, and he gathers the best of Scotland Yard to form a team. He then calls in the barmaid who witnessed the murder to identify the culprit from a lineup. Despite identifying Ron, she refuses to single him out for fear of repercussions.
The man who shot Cornell, he's not here.
Are you sure?
At her home in the city, while she spends the day alone, Frances notices it's raining and runs to cover her new car, as she still hasn't learned to drive yet. Then, a drunk Reggie arrives and dismisses her efforts. Frustrated, Frances runs back to the house to escape the rain. However, Reggie follows her inside, physically abuses and rapes her. Having survived the ordeal, Frances leaves Reggie the next morning and goes to stay with her brother. In a surprising turn of events, Ron gives Frances a warm and respectful farewell. A few days later, Reggie comes to his senses, approaches Frances, and apologizes profusely. Then, hoping to make amends and show that he can change, Reggie promises to take Frances to Ibiza, just so they can spend some quality time together. When Frances accepts the offer, Reggie rushes off to get the tickets. Later, the young Frances, who had once dreamt big, overdoses on pills and dies. Devastated, Reggie holds a private funeral for Frances, where Mrs. Shea blatantly blames him for killing her daughter, as her worst nightmare is realized. Elsewhere, Ron orders Jack to kill Leslie, but it goes sideways. Having survived the ordeal and feeling betrayed, Leslie approaches Nipper and gives him all the detailed information he needs, after making sure he and his family will be in witness protection. Nipper gets testimony from a dozen more witnesses, including the barmaid, who finally tells the truth. Reggie learns this, and despite not approving of Ron's actions, he couldn't sit back and watch as his sick brother is incriminated. Hence, he confronts Jack at a party and stabs him to death, while everyone watches in terror. This incident puts the final nail in the Kray's coffins, and they are both arrested. Reggie Kray is sentenced to 33 years for Jack's murder and died from cancer, while Ron's found guilty of George's murder, was certified insane, and sent to a mental institution until his death from a heart attack. And with that, the story ends. Please like and subscribe to our channel for more of the best film recaps.